had as current positioning and in exporting and not focusing on Morocco. We kind of took an approach of using Morocco as, wouldn't call it a test subject, but that's close enough, in that since they already headquarter here and they already do sell a lot of their products here through Zubairi Distribution, which is a distribution channel that they own, they already have the capabilities to market their product here in Morocco. But of course, we do plan to take this product elsewhere in the future once we've established its success.
Where?
Europe.
Mainly focusing on the European and the MENA region.
Yeah, I think it would succeed only in countries where the culture of eating premium olive oil would work, right? Because in England, I'm not sure it would work, but in Spain or Italy.
Just to clarify more, actually, our strategy doesn't only provide you with the eatable oil, but also for cosmetics. As you have seen, we have argan, other seeds from which you can press the oil. So it's for cooking, for cosmetics, and for multiple functions and reasons.
And also concerning our added value of this project, and is that we want our customers to have one of the healthiest food, kind of to consume, since they are going to be making it by themselves. Not only that, our product is also packaged by a biodegradable packaging. This means this will not alter the quality of the seeds. And our product itself, it's actually seeds, and seeds are known to contain the most proteins and vitamins in them. So our product in general is pretty much one of the healthiest that could be consumed.
And of course, we almost all know that the fact that you are involved in the process of making your own food or own ingredients, that makes you more secure about what you're eating, about the products you're using. So the fact that we allow you to press your own oil, that makes you feel safe.
One final comment as the American on this panel. This seems to me like something you would find in Starbucks, and it would be an export product. I could see my country people really getting excited about something like this with the prepackaged products, and put it next to their espresso machine in their high-end kitchen and brag about it. So I think it's got some legs, as we say, but from my perspective, certainly it seems like an export product might be easier.
Actually, yeah, we are going to be exporting it. Just our presentation was focused on Moroccan, and we have found that also the Moroccan people could benefit from this. We were like, why not? But it is going to be exported for sure.
Why Jumia will be a start to purchase it online if you are not from Morocco, not only for Moroccans, but also for internationals.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you, judges. And we'll pause for about 15, 20 minutes and then entertain the last group.
Amen, amen. Amen. On se tutoie chez Coca-Cola. Personne ne se tutoie. Normalement, on est en sneakers, et jeans et t-shirt, mais là, on va obliger à porter les chemises. Bonjour. Zeynep, enchanté. Vous êtes prête? C'est bien, une team all women empowerment.
Yeah, that's
Voilà, caisse.
that was the vibe.
Bah, super. Super. J'ai hâte de vous écouter. J'ai lu votre document. Très bien fait. Well thought through, well structured, so you're all good.
Thank you.
Right, rock the boat.
Parce que c'est l'heure l'aخرين et احنا on nous a dit 15 minutes avant tu vois. Enfin قالوا لنا في la présentation mais يجي معنا 5 minutes.
Judges, you all ready? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up from judges. So for people who are joining us for the first presentation, I'm going to do a quick introduction of judges and re-welcome everybody to the last of the finalist presentations. Imad bin Musa is the CEO of Coca-Cola North Africa. Give everybody a wave. We know who he is. Okay, and then Hisham Bousakri is the CEO of Microtonics. And we have Badir Idrisi, who's the CEO of Atlan Space and an entrepreneur with corporate history. Marie-Alexandra Labrie is our banker, country director for the European development. And Lou Winowski is CEO TDM Aerospace. So thank you all for being here. You have 20 minutes. I ask if everybody would please turn off or silence your cell phones. After presentation, we'll have 20 minutes for Q&A. Okay, you may begin.
Today, we are going to talk about a company that has been operating for the last 100 years, a company that has recently changed its name. Now, for the last century, we at Société des Boissons du Maroc have seen ourselves more as a manufacturer, falling short on an optimal utilization of the data we have access to. Data, if used right, can be the driver for a large-scale change or potentially the key to any company's survival. My name is Iman Abu Saeed, and along with my teammates Yasmin Benjeloun, Zainab Khizani, and Ilham Husseini Hilali, would like to welcome you to our Capstone presentation.
Our company, SBA, is the leader in the alcoholic industry in Morocco. It is so far the only brewer in the country. It is diversified. Its product mix is composed of wines, beers, mineral water, and olive oil. That it produces through its 4 subsidiaries, Euro-Africaine des Eaux, SBM, SVCM, and CDC, that specializes in alcohol retailing.
Our company operates in different industries. However, our core competency is in the alcoholic beverages sector. This industry has been facing a stagnation of the growth of the beer segment because of an increase of illicit trade, an increase of taxation, what we call la taxe intérieure sur la consommation, and an increase of health awareness among Moroccans. There is also a threat, which will be the upcoming competition we will be facing because of an ongoing negotiations between Morocco and Europe for a deep and comprehensive free trade area agreement, which will decrease the tariff rates and maybe increase the quantity of imported products. Another threat is the rumors about Diana Holding entering the beer segment by opening their own brewery. These threats are slightly offset by some opportunities, which are a rising growth of tourism in Morocco and the fact that Ramadan has been coming out of the summer season, which is a peak season for us in terms of sales. All of these factors are extremely important in order to understand the context and the importance of our proposed strategy.
Another equally important factor in the formulation process of our strategy is to understand how the company is doing financially. After 2 years of struggling in 2015-2016, the company's revenues have risen by 3% in the year ending 2017. However, this rise is mainly explained by an increase in the beer export rather in the local consumption. The company's capital structure is composed mainly of equity. It has been working on decreasing its debt, and now it has 3% debt. The company's retention rate is 0.05, which is very low. That means that the company does not reinvest a lot into new projects, and that cannot be sustainable in the long term, as the company's stock price might decrease if it does not undergo into new ventures.
Now, being a market leader does no longer guarantee that our company can survive all the threats that the industry is surrounding us with. Taking into consideration all of our missed opportunities, we formulated a strategy that is best aligned with our company's long-term objectives. So let's take a look at our value chain. Now, the existing elements of this value chain are the SBM headquarters, the factories, the distribution channels, and warehouses. Now imagine the amount of variables we at Société des Boissons du Maroc have to track. Imagine the amount of data we need to collect from every and each location, a task that could be very chaotic. So what we're proposing is to put order to this chaos. What we're proposing is connecting every and each element of this existing value chain and connect them with newly created ones, mainly the chain of the microbreweries. How are we going to connect these locations? What we're proposing is a connection through Internet of Things in order to collect data from every single location, data that will be later analyzed in the epicenter of our circle, which is the newly created R&D center. Now, before I invite Yasmin back here to tell you more about the technology we're proposing and how it's going to work, let me introduce you to what a microbrewery is. So essentially, a microbrewery is just a typical brewery, but with a limited production capacity that does not exceed 10,000 hectoliters per year. Think of it as your go-to place for a beer experience, where you can get a beer that's crafted for you and that's made on the spot. We're going to be serving craft beer in this place, and the reason for that is that craft beer is an innovative beer that's based on creative recipes that cater for specific tastes and preferences, and that take into consideration innovative consumer trends. Now, we would have loved to bring you some samples of our craft beer, but Yasmin here says she lost them, so I'm just gonna invite her back to tell you more about the technology instead.
Now let's see how the technology of this circle works. We will have, simply defined Internet of Things refers to the connection of everyday objects to the Internet and to one another. In our case, we will have sensors all around our value chain tracking important data. So for example, we will have sensors in the microbreweries and manufacturing plants gathering technical information for the production of beer, such as temperature, acidity, exposure to oxygen. All of this will allow us to track the production of beer and increase the likelihood of having a consistent product, and tackle issues in a proactive rather than reactive way in the manufacturing plant. We will also have sensors in the microbreweries, in the kegs, which are beer containers, that will allow us to track the temperature, if it's too warm, if it's gonna be emptied soon, so that bartenders can track the level of beer in the keg and be automatically alerted if they have to refill them soon. All of this will allow to improve the customer satisfaction in the microbrewery. And finally, in the warehouses and inventories, we will have sensors in order to track the flow of assets and to improve overall the inventory management of the company. So how all of does this work? We will have sensors tracking the data, and they will be sent to Raspberry Pi. These Raspberry Pis are connected to a subserver, and all the different subservers are connected to a main server. This main server will send the data to a computer system, which will run machine learning models in order to analyze the data, identify trends, and forecast some models. The output of these machine learning models will be stored in the private database of the company, and it will be visualized in a user-friendly way so that the people in the headquarters can understand this technical information and determine some actions and formulate strategies accordingly.
Now, for every single gram of malt that is used, for every box that is shipped, for every financial variable, and for every demographic we collect, imagine what would the output be if we combine all of these variables together. So these variables, as Yasmin mentioned, are going to be collected and analyzed in the epicenter of our circle, which is the newly created R&D center. So the output could be in the form of an increase of dark beer consumption among a specific demographic. And this is how this strategy helps us into understanding how the market behaves. So every element of this circle has a very vital objective and is aligned with the long-term objective of our overall company. The technology itself helps us mitigate the risk of the inevitable rise and increase in taxation that we cannot control, and going beyond optimal operational efficiency by reducing costs and thus increasing or maintaining our profit margins. And the second thing is that the microbreweries themselves, in addition to tackling the stagnation in beer demand by offering a completely different product that still is in the core competency of our company, provides us with a sort of market for us to test, launch our concepts, and test the likelihood of success of a certain concept before maybe starting the industrialization process. Think of our circle strategy as somewhat a looped mechanism that's going to ensure constant product innovation that is based on consumer trends as a source of sustained competitive advantage.
Now, if you're a customer, what's in there for you? Well, to answer this question, let's go back to the microbreweries. We will be offering two kind of products, the craft beer and other SBM products that were mentioned earlier. For the craft beer, it will be available in many flavors, and a non-alcoholic version of the product will also be available. Now, people from the United States, Russia, Canada, Germany, Italy, and Switzerland consume the most craft beer in the world. And they also represent 30% of the tourists in Morocco, a number that is expected to increase in 2020. Well, these people actually represent our main target as far as the demographic parameters are concerned. But because we are based in Morocco, it is also important that we target Moroccan people, as they represent an important market that we need to capitalize on. So our non-alcoholic craft beer that is available in many flavors will be there to appeal and accommodate Moroccan non-drinkers as well. No, because craft beer is more expensive than regular beer, we will be targeting people in the middle class and above who can actually afford our products. And more than that, craft breweries will be a new thing in Morocco. They will offer very unique products. So we are expecting our customers to be experimental, trend seekers, and curious. These people are usually between 21 to 35 years old, and even though they do not represent the cluster with the highest disposable income, they do tend to invest more on products that they see as more valuable. So, and to reach this actual target market, we are going to use precise advertising and targeting tools available on social media, and we are also going to organize events such as Oktoberfest and St. Patrick's Day that will be advertised through the radio and through social media to increase the traffic to our microbreweries. We'll also be having special offers and discounts to appeal to more people. And finally, when it comes to the cities, Marrakesh will be the first city to have a microbrewery implemented. Then it will be followed by Tangier and Casablanca, respectively. These cities were chosen using many factors, such as tourism rate, income level, and population size.
So how was all of this ethical? For the ethic component of our strategy, both the formulation and the implementation, we've used a common good approach because our aim is to provide the maximum amount of good to the society as a whole. So our choice of technology is, in a part, reducing the carbon dioxide footprint because we are attempting to reduce waste all over our value chain. Also, our microbreweries will operate using a smart grid system for electricity generation, which will help decrease the energy consumption and the energy cost of the company. By themselves, craft beers are very protective of the environment as they're consumed with glass cups instead of industrialized bottle waste. So this will reduce bottle waste for the company, for the environment. And finally, our microbreweries will be creating job opportunities for the local population of these microbreweries, and we will be especially hiring local young adults to whom we will provide with a set of trainings.
Now, because our strategy includes the implementation of a new technology, we will be creating new job positions, such as in-house consultants and security experts. The R&D Center alone will be creating 15 majority white-collar jobs between the data analysts, the security experts, etc. And this number was actually forecasted it's a result of a forecast of similar R&D centers. And finally, for the microbreweries, we will be opening 11 jobs per microbrewery between the bartenders, the waiters, the security and cleaning staff, and the manager. This number was also a result of a forecast of similar microbreweries and is a number that is actually scalable in the future. So as more microbreweries we open, the more jobs we will be creating.
Now that we have explained how our strategy works, the most important question for our shareholders is this strategy financially viable? So for that, we will be using the NPV method for the microbreweries, and then we recalculated the whole value of the firm after the implementation of the strategy as it touches all departments. For the sales, we've estimated two types of sales: sales for normal days and sales for weekends and peak season. The cost is estimated at 6.6 dirhams per liter, which is our variable cost for raw materials, and at 126,500 dirham per month. The initial investment totals 2,760,000 dirhams. That includes Internet of Things, machine learning, smart grid, legal and accounting fees, fees for licenses, equipment, and remodeling fees. We will be forecasting using and discounting using a WACC of 6.8. Gave us three types of results for three types of scenarios. For the realistic scenario, we got an NPV per share of 6.32. For the pessimistic scenario, we forecasted free cash flows to be 20% lower. That gave us an NPV per share of 2.07. As for the optimistic scenario, we forecasted free cash flows to be 20% higher, and that gave us an NPV per share of 10.91. We got an investor recommendation for all as the NPV is higher than 0. We recalculated the firm value using a 10-year forecast. So the current value is the market cap of the company, which amounts to 2,500 dirham per share. And after the implementation of our strategy in the long run, the price of the shares could go up to 3,310 dirhams per share.
Now, all of this is great, but do we have the actual tools to implement this strategy? I want you to keep in mind that we're a company that has been operating for the last century, and it's a century where we have been operating more as a manufacturer, having a very rigid top-down management style. So implementing technology and innovative approaches like these will not be easy. What we did first is analyze all of our company in terms of change management using the 7S McKinsey model to understand how these 7 factors that are the key success success factors for any company work. And then through that, we created a strategy for our change management approach. We first started by creating a sense of urgency among our employees, getting all the key people in the company together and getting them motivated for the change. Then we started with the most important thing that has a very long-term vision, which is the strategy. The strategy we're offering is an innovative strategy that provides us with a strategic vision of who we want to be, which is a company that's still a market leader and that still has data that they're actually making sense from. The second thing is that we analyze the business systems. So since we're implementing innovative approaches, mainly the Internet of Things and the machine learning models, we need to change our business systems and update them accordingly. The third thing is that these two elements are going to be supported through our structure, mainly the HR structure, since we're hiring new staff with a very different skill set that we do not have, as we don't have a really great expertise in IT. And all of this is going to help us as a friction reducer to first change our management style from a top-down approach to more of a horizontal approach, and thus impacting our values, making them stronger, and making our culture less decentralized and more unified.
So in light of the changes that have been occurring in the business environment, consumer insights have become a major source for sustained competitive advantage. Being a market leader is no longer a guaranteed position for us, SBM. So instead of shying away and ignoring the challenges of this money-generating industry, we've decided to capitalize on our core competency, which is beer production. So our strategy goes beyond the 3-year strategic management plan proposed. It's scalable in terms of job creation and ethical impact, and it's a continued source for innovation, cost reduction, and positive impact for the environment and for the shareholders. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to last judge first. We're doing a LIFO model here. Lewandowski.
Thank you for an interesting idea on a very popular pastime, certainly from where I come from. Beer drinking and particularly craft beer. So if I understand it correctly, what you're trying to do is using the Internet of Things, trying to create a demand model that allows you to make decisions to optimize the revenue generation and profitability of this business. Does that summarize it?
Actually, our strategy, as we mentioned, it's a circle strategy because it touches on many elements and many objectives. So what we're proposing first is to gather the data, like you just mentioned, from every location, every element of our value chain. And this data could be different depending on the location we're collecting it from. And the thing is that they're going to be assembled in our R&D center, then ran through machine learning models in order to forecast decisions. These decisions would help us understand our market behavior better and then optimize our offering while also reducing the cost through Internet of Things, because the data we're going to get could be also about our energy consumption, they could be about how to optimize our production, etc.
So it's an optimization approach, and you want to optimize the revenue in the system and optimize the profitability of the bottom line of the system, correct? And this includes all of the participants in the system. So whether it's a factory, a warehouse, microbrewery, you want them to operate at the peak efficiency. That's what you're after here?
And also make the data the source of our competitive advantage, because...
Okay, and this is all happening in Morocco, and with the intention of growing the beer business because it's been flat to reducing. So you want to make better decisions so you can grow the business, right? The question here is there an underlying increase in demand, or is there a market share that you're going after, or is this a quasi-monopoly and you know, you can't really grow it, but you're trying to get more out of it? What's the the ecosystem?
Okay, so for the last years, there has been a stagnation to a slight decrease in beer demand in Morocco.
Yes.
But in 2017 and 2018, our financials show that the demand in beer is increasing. However, we've been very conservative in the way we formulated our strategy, taking into account worst-case scenarios. So we just took it as a variable that in the future there is going to be a stagnation of beer demand. That's one of the reasons why we're also offering as part of our value chain the microbreweries, because craft beer in Morocco does not exist, so we do not actually have a culture of craft beers, and especially that in the offerings of craft beer we can cater to different tastes and preferences, and it's a very different product than the industrialized beer that we're currently offering.
Okay. Does SBM have a near monopoly on beer and wine in Morocco?
So far, Société de Boissons du Maroc is the only brewery in Morocco. The only competition we have in the segment of beer is imported beer. But as we mentioned in our industry analysis, there are strong rumors that our biggest competitor in Morocco, especially in the wine segment, Znebr, are planning on opening their own brewery in Morocco, and with the strong brand name that they have and the capital also that they have, they can be a strong competitor for us.
Also, if I might add, they have the biggest market share mainly because of their product La Spéciale, which is the cheapest in the market. But with the possible free trade agreement between Europe and Morocco, if tariff rates decrease and the imported products are cheaper and maybe of higher quality, then we have a bigger competition than we have right now. So this is how we're tackling this issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I didn't see the cost of deploying the IoT, and because what bothers me here is that such a project, IoT project, is a very huge one, and I didn't get the relationship between deploying IoT and having a microbrewery. So are they correlated? Can you still launch the microbrewery without doing IoT, or is it a prerequisite of doing it?
So to answer your question, the microbrewery is only a component of our strategy.
Okay.
So can you go back to the slide with the technology? So here for the implementation of the IoT, it's going to be present in all our facilities, including the new microbrewery. And the microbrewery are going to actually be also a field test. So for example, before industrializing a product, we can actually launch it at the level of the microbrewery, especially, for example, if it's a specific taste, and gather consumer feedback. And if it has, for example, positive feedback, it goes back to the chain and will actually be produced and industrialized. Also, the microbrewery is there to help us gather more data about our consumers, because this is the only component that is actually in contact with our end consumer. So it is the one that is helping us gathering these data when it comes to, for example, nationalities or taste preferences, etc.
We could do the microbrewery without the IoT or vice versa, but the entire point of our strategy is that, as Zainab mentioned, the microbrewery is another source for this data we're gathering, because Société de Boissons du Maroc, being a market leader, they have huge access to data, but they're not doing anything with that data, because most of our businesses, when we interviewed them, they see themselves as more of a B2B kind of company. And with all of the threats that we're facing right now, we need to change that, or they're going to lose that market share, especially having like stronger brand names competing against them. So the microbreweries, yes, it's an element of our strategy, but just as another source of data, as a strategy to diversify our offerings, which goes with our long-term objective, as well as mitigate the risk of the stagnation in beer demand, since it's a different product.
But do they have already a business intelligence process in place?
No, they do not have they don't really have any technology whatsoever, unless it's in their manufacturing. In their manufacturing places, they have a semi-automatized system, but they don't have any system for the data they have access to. The most similar thing that they're doing right now is marketing research, which is a very typical kind of approach to marketing research.
Because, sorry, go ahead.
They do not actually rely on consumer insights. They're not there yet.
Okay, because there is a big difference between being able to get the data and using the data. If they're not used to use the data, I saw a lot of projects in Morocco where customers were spending millions of dirhams on BI, business intelligence, and willing to do big data and stuff like this. But at the end, the project was deployed. Data is there, but they're not using it because it's not in their process of decision making.
Yes, the quality of the model that we're going to have in the machine learning models is correlated with the quality of data that we have. So even the thing that's very of data, and since we are the monopoly, at least in the brewing industry in Morocco, we have lots of data that's concentrated in all of the parts of our value chain. It's just about us not utilizing this data, because if we do so, we can provide our customers and future customers with better offerings, as well as it's good for us, because the implementation of such technology is not only about what the offer is going to be. It's also about reducing our costs, because with the increasing taxation that we cannot control, mainly la taxe intérieure sur la consommation, unless we find innovative approaches to cut our costs, we cannot survive. Or we're just going to charge more on our customer and eventually lose them with the deep and comprehensive agreement, for example.
This is why we added machine learning, not just Internet of Things, because Internet of Things is for collecting the data, but we're using machine learning in order to extract information, valuable information for the firm and customer insights from this raw data. That's why we combined both. We used both Internet of Things and machine learning.
And what is the cost of deploying this model? The machine learning and the big data and the Internet of Things.
Actually, the cost is only calculated for the NPV model. The cost was only for one microbrewery. So it was the initial investment for only one, and then the overall cost of data and the cost reduction that it's gonna of IoT and the cost reduction that it's gonna produce is in when we recalculated the firm value, and that gave us a higher firm value for a 10-year forecast.
So the cost of this technology that we're going to be implemented, we took it from, for the machine learning, we consulted with IT experts, and we took the cost from Atos, the French company that specializes in AI. And for the Internet of Things, we also consulted with IT experts on how we're going to implement the data and what we need in terms of cost. And we also consulted with Nexotronic, that are based in Morocco and that specialize in the implementation of IoT. And these two costs, we included them in our financials. And these are the costs for the implementation of this technology for the entire group. So it's for the entire value chain. It's not only for the microbrewery. However, the costs, we included only one microbrewery, as we are opening only one in the first year.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm still trying to get around to understand what is your idea. So basically, if I reformulate correctly, you need to have better information from your production process to make to have more efficiency and to adapt your offer to the customer needs. Is that correct?
Yes, somehow. Like as we said, our strategy does not touch on only one point.
Okay, but just try to summarize it in one sentence.
To summarize it, okay, so we're a market leader. We have upcoming threats from both the industry and upcoming competitors, and we have access to certain data that we only have, especially in the beer segment, because we're the only brewery in Morocco, but data that we're not utilizing and that we're not doing anything with. And unless we choose or try to find a strategy that is going to utilize optimally this data and help us achieve our long-term objectives in terms of operational efficiency, cost reduction, increasing profit margins, as well as diversifying portfolios while mitigating certain risks that we cannot control. We're going to gather this data, and the optimal way of gathering this data is using Internet of Things, because first we have the capital to do it, and we do not invest in any other project, and second, because we're operating in an environment that pushes us towards technology and pushes us towards finding innovative solutions. So with the gathering of this data, we're going to analyze this data using machine learning models, algorithms, to forecast what's the best course of action that we need to take. Because the best thing about a machine learning algorithm is that there can spot trends and spot things that us as human beings will not be able to spot, especially that we have quality of data.
If I may add, summary would be the gathering, the analyzing, and utilizing this data. That is also that is concerning our operations and is also concerning our customers. That would be the bottom line.
So it's consumer insights, maybe.
Yeah, so I had a couple of questions. The first one had to do with the local company environment. So one of the arguments that was made was that it will be targeted towards a demographic of tourists coming to Morocco who are used to the culture of the microbrewery back home. They would like to find it back here. But you also wanted to target the Moroccan consumer, which is legally forbidden in Morocco.
That is why we specified that for the Moroccans, for the non-drinker Moroccans, we will offer a non-alcoholic craft beer in order to stay within the limits of the Moroccan law.
So that applies to the drinking Moroccans as well as the non-drinking Moroccans. You're just not allowed to target Moroccans with alcoholic beverages, period.
We are only targeting Moroccans within the law, obviously. We're not targeting Moroccan Muslims, which the law obviously forbids us from doing so.
That's correct.
We're targeting, for example, Jewish Moroccans that still live in Morocco. We're targeting, mainly that's why we specify that we have expats and tourists first.
Okay.
And then we offer non-alcoholic craft beers for those Moroccans who would just come for the experience.
Sure, but I just want to make sure that within your pitch, you're clear on what demographics of Morocco you're targeting, not to stay on the wrong side of the law. The other question had to do with the kinds of insight. So I do understand the IoT and everything that can come with it. So aside from optimizing your logistics, if you are an industrialized standard product company and you want to step into a specialized, customized type of product, it's a completely different distribution chain, marketing pitch, and organization as a company. Are you suggesting that the company abandons the industrialized standard product to replace it with this one? Or are you suggesting that this will be a kind of diversification strategy that might, I don't know what's the term in English, but en français c'est phagocyter son propre marché, which will eat up your main market? Cannibalize, thanks. Yeah.
Actually, for the strategy is the first thing for the microbrewery, the first reason why we are doing the microbreweries is to gather data and customer insights, is to create a brand name for Brasserie du Maroc, and it's also for maybe industrializing products that are going to be generated in those microbreweries. For example, so far, SBM does not produce dark beer. It has never produced it and only produces it for some Spanish markets. However, with the microbreweries, if, for example, our machine learning model detects a trend of increasing demand in dark beer, SBM could go and industrialize the dark beer using what's already made in the microbreweries.
So we're not proposing to abandon the industrialized beer. We're proposing to make the industrialized beer better. By first with the microbrewery, it's going to serve as a market for test launches of certain concepts. So if we see that, for example, the microbrewery among a certain demographic, we have a high consumption of dark beer, like Ilham mentioned, it's going to give us an insight to what the market wants. Since we have craft beers that are based on creative recipes, you can detect which are the tastes and preferences that these consumers have and cater accordingly. We're not going to cannibalize our product. We took that into consideration as well as we calculated the index of cannibalization. We saw also how it's going to impact the previous sales of our industrialized products. And since they're very different in terms of offerings, there is no risk. Since this microbrewery is very niched also in terms of target.
Well, there are two things that I liked about your presentation. Number one, as an FMCG, you put the consumer at the heart. And so your strategy is really centered around the consumer. And therefore, the idea of having a microbrewery kind of makes sense. And it's kind of a ongoing pilot test with your consumer. So you like, that's the whole idea. The other thing I like about your presentation is that you are bring in big data as a competitive edge. And I think many companies in Morocco and around the world do not leverage the amount of data they have, and it's king. Companies like Coca-Cola, for instance, only understood that 10 years ago when Walmart came to us and said, well, we have some good data, but you got to pay $3 million to have a look. And so I think to integrate data in a company like SBM, which has a fully integrated SAP system, is, I think, a smart idea to put in place. So on those 2 points, I think it's good. I'm going to step back and give you probably a challenge. You presented at the beginning a full spectrum of brand and portfolio and categories where they operate. And they have a water business. Actually, we are in the heartland of their water business, which is Ain Ifran. So we are in Ain Ifran. And water is 10 times bigger than beer in Morocco. So in Morocco, we consume 80 million liters of beer and 800 million liters of packaged water. So the question to me is, what made you decide that it's the beer business that you want to build your strategy on and not water? And within the beer, double click on that one to go back to my neighbor and friend Hisham's question, why not focus on the non-alcoholic beer, because there are legal and cultural barriers to alcoholic beer consumption in Morocco?
Our actually core competency is beer. Most of our revenues are generated from beer. And when we did our industry analysis, we discovered that SBM is going to face future threats that are related to the beer industry. So we couldn't not tackle this problem, because the water only represents, I think, around 1 or 2% of their revenues. For us, it didn't make sense to tackle the water, while there is a big problem coming in the beer industry that is representing our core competency and not targeted. For the non-alcoholic beer as an industrialized product, we discussed actually with the SBM, and they had Fayrouz, that was a non-alcoholic beer, and after further research, they discovered that Moroccans are not really interested into buying industrialized non-alcoholic beer. So they actually dropped the idea themselves after discussing with them. So this is why we chose to focus on the beer industry, and we chose a more innovative approach.
And if I might add, this chain is scalable to other business division of SBM. So for the craft beer, we can test, we can develop non-alcoholic beers in the microbreweries and test them there. So it's scalable for all the divisions and the products of the company.
Even in terms of technology, thank you. Even in terms of technology, so the technology touches, as we said, all the different locations in our value chain. But here we focused on our core competency, which is the beer segment. But in the future, obviously, above this 3 years strategic management plan, it could also be touching also the wine segment, the water segment, and the olive oil segments, just that they constitute a very small part of our revenues, and we thought it was better for us to concentrate on what is the main revenue generating segment for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Okay, we want to thank everybody for being here throughout. We'll take a pause now and come back together at 4:30 to hear announcements, awards, and gratitudes. Yeah? All right, thank you.
We would also like to say a big, big thank you for Dr. Lagare for helping us with everything. You've been very amazing. And also Dr. Deborah, you have been also very amazing and very helpful. We thank both of you. Thank you.